I'm loving the pop off.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Rent Money. Running back Jones here, joined as always with old Chisum and Texas Pete to break down the college football slate for y'all. Doing a little recap of last week's Vandy, Nashville, Broadway, goalposts. Going to talk a little bit about that game as well as some of our favorite underdog stories, both fictional, collegiate, professional. And then we're going to get into the picks, do a little Heisman recap. You guys all know the drill. Before we get to that, Texas Pete would like to give us a little word about our presenting sponsor for today's episode. Go ahead, Texas Pete.
Yeah, thank you. Really excited about this sponsor and really glad to have them on the program here. So, hey, Dew Nation, get ready to embark on a flavor journey like no other with Mountain Dew's new Infinite Swirl. This isn't just any soda. It's a whirlwind of bold fruit flavors that'll keep your taste buds on their toes. With every sip, you'll experience a delicious explosion that's as limitless as your adventures. Perfect for those college football Saturdays, outdoor adventures, or just chilling with friends. Infinite Swirl is your ticket to a flavor experience that never stops giving. So grab your can or bottle of Infinite Swirl and get ready to ride the wave of flavor. Mountain Dew, do the dew. Thank you very much for Mountain Dew Infinite Swirl for sponsoring this week's episode of Rent Money. Really excited to have him aboard. I believe Mr. Jones had Infinite Swirl earlier this week. How was?
Yeah, shout out PepsiCo. They were kind enough to deliver a pallet to my home address. The swirl, it's not only a blast of flavor, it's going to give a little blast to your attitude. The rest of the afternoon, I was ready to go. Don't let the name confuse you. It's a swirl of flavor, not a swirl of thoughts. I was dialed in, just crushing out some work. I can see how Mountain Dew became the most popular drink for third grade teachers around the world. Sometimes you just got to have that energy level boost to match the energy of the children around you.
Yeah,
Infinite Swirl. It was super tasty. Highly recommend.
I'll tell you what, one thing that I've been seeing around the office lately, I don't know if you guys have, but instead of that afternoon coffee, go get an afternoon Mountain Dew Infinite Swirl. Switch up the afternoon. Set the tone for the week. Let them know who the alpha is.
And if you can't, maybe you don't have the Infinite Swirl at your office. That's because they're only currently serving in 7-Elevens and Speedways. So if you're intrigued by this ad, you want an Infinite Swirl, you're going to have to order those or hit up a 7-Eleven or a Speedway gas station near you.
I'll tell you what, the exclusive launches for the Mountain Dew flavors, like Baja Blast forever was exclusively at Taco Bell. They do numbies. Don't know what it is, but I love it. I'll go out of my way to get Infinite Swirl. I have, and I will again.
We support the Dew brand. And, we got a lot of people that are probably near Casey's. If you want a Casey's exclusive Mountain Dew, don't forget to check out the Overdrive. Next time we get an ad read, maybe I'll get a pallet of those. So try to slip that one in there. And Overdrive,
Mountain
also
Dew.
at Casey's.
Send us some more.
Mountain Dew. All right, let's get to it. Woo! Welcome back to another edition. I appreciate everybody listening in. Had a lot of great content on the Pop Off podcast recently, and thanks for joining us wherever you're listening. Old Chisum, another insane week of college football. The SEC, a couple big Titans fall, and the college football playoff in the top of the league, especially after kind of Oregon, Ohio State this weekend. There might not be too many undefeated teams left. Anything stick out of the weekend for you?
I feel like, yeah, dude, it really came down to two things. One, I think we talked about this previously. There's just not going to be as many undefeated teams as there have been historically in college football. I think part of that is going to be due to there's more games that are going to be played for, the champions, conferences, or there's more competition, I guess you could say, with it being Power 4 instead of Power 5 now. It's fun, I really do think that college football just has such a significantly better product than the NFL, purely because of their ability to capitalize on stars, and the stars have delivered. Ashton Jeanty has been, I don't even know if there's the right word for it, because we've just never seen this level of dominance. But
Let's start with Jeanty, and then
There's
we'll go to the games too. Have you played with him yet in college football? The game, Adam? Chisum?
I played against him. I was actually gonna send a text into you that I think
You've
the guy
lined up.
that I
You've lined up across from him. You've seen it. You've looked him in the eyes.
Tough to game plan
you know,
for
he
him.
stands there menacingly. But no, actually, I think Dylan Edwards is my favorite running back I've played with in the game. Dude is shifty as hell. Quick hips, quick turns, excellent footwork. But no, I haven't given myself the pleasure quite yet, purely because I can't stand the blue field, dude. I can't do it. I can't.
Are you edging Ashton?
I'm not edging him. He's edging me, if anything, dude.
You're just edging each other for eternity.
We really are. We're two shits in the night.
Well, maybe one day you'll be able to get your rocks off. Nothing's stopping you but yourself. You can pull up and play with them anytime you'd like. What do you have to see out of Ashton Jeanty the rest of the way to get your commitment to play with him in college football?
I don't think I can do it just purely because of the blue field, man. I'm an angry old man now. I'm sitting there like, this is giving me a migraine.
Dude.
Deborah, turn this shit off. I can't do it.
That is a lot of
It would be
blue
a
light
great
coming
story
through the screen.
if you went into a franchise and worked your ass off to get him through on the transfer portal. Somehow, some way, get him off that blue field.
I've put in upwards of 500 hours on that game now, I think. And aside from teaching myself some of the X's and O's of the game, is my career ended after 6th grade.
Sorry to hear that.
Proud member of the student section, though. The game is really fun purely because you're like, oh, this is what you do in these situations, and the ability to have so much control of the players, whatnot. But I was too busy grinding with like 67 overall Caleb Johnson. Moved him up the depth chart hard. Said, I don't care what your overall is. I know what your heart is made of. And that's, that's winning. It's a winner's mentality that goes into that.
I haven't seen whatever you want to call them, mid-major player take over a country like this, maybe since Jimmer Fredette. I don't even know who the last guy that captured our attention. That was on a smaller stage like Ashton Jeanty has. And I saw some stuff on Twitter. They're like, wow, Ashton Jeanty is making us realize Boise State can be a fun program. That made me feel old. Because growing up, we all know Boise State was a bit of a wagon. So it's good to see, as much as you don't like it, Chisum, it's good to see the blue field back in our lives.
It is. I wish that they would move away from it. The orange on the field is pretty worn down. I don't know if you guys have seen recent images of the field. It almost looks yellowish through the TV. I really feel like Boise State went all in on this blue field, and right before they did that, a lot of advances in technology occurred, allowing for my television to have upwards of 4K viewing capabilities. And I don't have a 4K television. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that I do, but for somebody out there, I'm sure that's
advancements in television went further, and now they've regressed. We had the 3D in-home 3D TVs. We had the curved TVs.
The curved TVs were wild.
I don't know if we regressed, man. Amazon Prime Day today, as we're taping, I almost bought like a 62-inch TV just to have as utility. Like, I don't need it in any room. It wouldn't be hung up anywhere or set up in a reasonable spot, but it'd just be nice to have. And they're so cheap these days. It's like, you know what? Could I use it? It's 34% off, maybe.
It feels like instead of those crazy curved or 3Ds, people just want as big as they can get it for as cheap as they can.
Size matters.
Everything looks pretty clear these days. Size does matter, and any woman that tells you differently is lying to you. All right. Biggest game probably of the weekend, or the biggest story. Alabama, number 1 Alabama falling to Vanderbilt. Hasn't been seen in our lifetime. Holy shit, what a game. Texas Pete actually had boots on the ground, some friends in Nashville. Describe the scene to us from a guy that's tied in with the Vandy crowd.
Yeah, had a couple buddies out there for a bachelor party this weekend. They didn't obviously go to the game. You're not going to a Vandy-Bama game, for the viewing pleasure of it. I was just checking the score periodically throughout the first half because I was playing during that time, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, this is a close game. They're down. Ultimately, they're going to be coming back. It's like no doubt in your mind. Alabama doesn't lose to Vanderbilt. It doesn't happen. Doesn't process in my brain.
Nick, to your point, do you think the players also felt that way?
Yeah, and I think that's a big,
like the band.
100%. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this was also one of those games, since this is a gambling podcast, where I was chasing the dragon on it. I'm like, oh yeah, they were down. What was it, like 10 or 13 or something like that at halftime? Slam Bama. Okay, cool. Third quarter comes and goes. Do it again. They're going to turn it around. There's going to be a fluke play. Nashville was absolutely crazy, though. How about, I'm sure it was covered all over Twitter and the media this week, but parading the goalposts down Broadway, that is just absolutely electric. Like, good for them. That's a lifetime story for them.
Broadway hasn't seen commotion like that since Morgan Wallen was throwing chairs off the 7th floor.
Yeah.
Which was 3 days ago, probably. I feel like he just didn't almost hit a cop this time, but a few screws loose.
Yeah, phenomenal. Don't expect much from the Vandy program, though. I think this was absolutely the peak of it. It doesn't get higher than this, but you're going to wear that one for about
Apex Mountain.
You're going to wear that for about 15 years or so. All right.
I saw a guy calling into the Feinbaum show. You see this, Chisum? He was saying that basically he was saying Kalen DeBoer. This is just great to hear, like, the thoughts of Bama fans. Roll Tide. He said Kalen DeBoer is like a good girlfriend. You trust her, but I'm screwing this up. Just go ahead and look it up. Google the Feinbaum clip. He'll do it better than I could ever try and do his Southern accent. Caps, what do you think about parading the goalposts? Do you think this is just a nice throwback in terms of just get the boys rowdy? West Virginia's got a big game against Iowa State this weekend. Maybe burn some couches. Let's get a little bit of that back into our college football lives.
Yes.
Bring on the chaos. I'm not a fan typically of storming the field, but this was very much a scenario in which not only should they have, but I feel like it should have been mandatory, right? If you were in the stadium, if you were at that game, you should be on the field. It was truly historic. Playing the Saban quote over the PA too, after it was all said and done, of how Vanderbilt wasn't a tough place to play. And to his credit, they're not even fully done with renovations. You're playing in a live construction site. You got HVAC guys, the foreman's got his cigarette damn near pointed straight down to the ground, watching on the picture that got me the hardest, that really cut through my soul, was the Vandy student like pointing at the scoreboard to Bama fans. I don't know if that's a picture that you could ever have recreated at any point in our lifetimes. I don't know if Vanderbilt has ever had a lead against Bama in football, but on this particular Saturday, they did it, and they maintained said lead till the final whistle. And watching just this drunk dipshit, saw a lot of myself in this kid.
I don't think you could get into Vanderbilt.
That might be why. I know for a fact that I couldn't. I mean, I had a solid GPA, but
if you just hung around the campus and just started making friends with people, you'd be a local legend pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not hard. It's not hard to make friends. It's a lot harder to get rid of them if you're a guy. The barrier to entry to friendship as a male is, I got one, you got one, we both watch sports.
Yeah,
that's as complicated as it needs to be. The tough part is being like, hey, it's not you, it's me, right?
If they just say to me, I don't want to listen to them.
Yeah, it's like I just don't. I will. I don't like your brain. The way your brain computes information and takes inputs and outputs. I don't really get along with that.
I'm not enjoying this conversation, and I feel forced to be in it. Nah, yeah, I don't think it's working, bro.
Yeah. I love talking ball with old guys, because the whole time I'm usually like, they don't know ball. They're too focused on the real world issues. Instead of having the playoff baseball games tonight, they probably got the Weather Channel on, checking in on the hurricane. They just got bigger fish to fry. Don't know ball. The other big upset from down in the SEC was Tennessee losing to Pittman's club, the Razorbacks. I got to say, we're a pro Nico pod, been a pro Tennessee pod, pro Hypo pod. Nico looked like a inexperienced quarterback again this week. We saw it a little bit against Oklahoma. And then just, they schemed him up. That was another one where I kind of thought, where's Tennessee's offense? They had chances late in the game. Nico ran the ball out of bounds instead of throwing it to the end zone. The last leg of a money line parlay, they were the best odds in it. You're joking me, whatever. Disappointed in Nico. I'm like a disappointed parent.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at him. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
We were all texting the rent money chat near the end of that game. It's go time for Nico. He's in the 2-minute drill. Need to score to win the game. I mean, you just got to put a mark in the win column. It's not going to be your best game, but if you want to be an elite quarterback and at the top of your class, you got to find a way to pull that one out, get down the field, and put your team in the scoring position. It's just the cherry 100%. On top for embarrassment when he ran out of bounds with the clock expiring. Still a pro Nico pod. That's not going to change. There's a lot of hope for this young man out there, but just not a bright moment for us. And I need to see a lot from him going forward to kind of make up for this mistake.
100%. 2 weeks from now, Alabama's got South Carolina, Tennessee's got Florida, and then those two teams are going to meet up. Love how that pans out in the schedule. Both teams should be able to roll against South Carolina and Florida this weekend, and they're going to have a nice big matchup. One-loss teams probably both got to win to stay front runner for the SEC championship game. Looks like a 2-loss team might get in to the SEC championship game. I'd actually say it's probably likely, but we'll see how that plays out. Ole Miss with a big game this weekend too. We'll get to later in our pick section. Well, maybe real quick, we spent a little bit of time on both those games. We can just run through a few different results over the weekend briefly, and then we'll kind of get into our little underdog discussion as well. First game, I think Navy Air Force. Pretty excited to see Navy continue to roll. I just want to call this game out because it was a perfect opportunity for us to zig and zag on ourselves. Caps, would you say that the service academy unders, it's been such a good bet for so long? Am I overreacting, or is this still the system play, or has it gotten to the point where now we got to zag the zig?
I think that was a game where if you were going to zag the zig, that was your opportunity. I obviously did not see through that. I was just kind of going off of blind, childlike faith. But Air Force is so bad comparative to Army and Navy. Typically, they're fairly even when you look across the board, but Air Force is genuinely so much worse than both Army and Navy. And the fact that Army and Navy are
huge
undefeated thus far. I mean, dude, they're so fun to watch. And the premise of the potential of, I should say, both of those schools going and playing each other in a conference championship. What are they? Conference USA, American Conference. I forget which one. I think it's American Conference, but the thought that hypothetically they could play each other week 15 in the conference championship, and then the very next week 16, turn around and play each other again in the Army-Navy game right before playoffs kick off the very next, I guess, scheduled week. It's genuinely fun to think about because
fire me up.
In what world did anyone see this even being a remote possibility, especially the University of Notre Dame, because these are now the two best teams on their schedule somehow.
Chisum,
Sans Clemson.
Before we get into a Notre Dame Fighting Irish tangent, I have a question. Army and Navy, they play in the Armed Forces Bowl at the end of the season. It's like just written into their schedule. Is that true?
It's not a bowl game. Yeah. It is specifically just their rivalry week.
It's a bowl.
That is
not a bowl game.
It's not rivalry weekend though, is it?
It's a rivalry. No, it's their specific rivalry game.
It kind of is rivalry week, is it not? It's the week after.
It's after
after the end of yes.
Okay, so
after conference championships.
If one of those teams made the college football playoffs, are they still playing in that game, or what do you guys think?
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, it's a unless they're forfeiting. Like,
I mean, if we didn't do that, Canada might invade us. They said, "Look at these pussies. Can't play one more football game."
Okay,
you kidding me?
Okay, interesting.
They're playing on December 14th. I think the first bowl games probably start like 19th.
Okay, so when do the first round of the playoffs start?
The 20th.
So
Of January or
hypothetically,
December? Oh, December. Yeah.
No, of December.
Hypothetically,
they
you're
make
right.
college football playoffs.
If
They're
Navy
playing in
runs the
their
table, beats
exhibition,
Notre
non-exhibition
Dame,
game.
Boise State
Yeah.
maybe drops one. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that they would all say that Navy
Boise
Army
State's a
game is more
completely different.
than whatever the playoff game is.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too.
It really is.
Boise State is kind of in a world of their own in the Mountain West. There's not really anyone contending with them right now. What are you going to do, though, when it comes to the five if you count the Pac-12, G5, G6 conferences, specifically the ones that are also undefeated. And it's going to be just a incredibly entertaining last few weeks of the season. I feel like November, December is going to just be a different feel completely. Everything kind of was light and breezy and fun. And, oh, there's Lee Corso and, hey, Pat McAfee, so much fun. You're about to get your fucking shit
There's
rocked
fucking
if you bring that
delusional Lee
mindset.
Corso still on the TV.
Hey. If Terry Bradshaw can still do it, so can Lee.
Neither one of them can. They need to let it go, man. Jesus.
Terry was phenomenal in failure to launch. Outside of that, I can't really speak to much in his post-playing days, but here we are.
Lee might be delusional. Terry Bradshaw's senile. We've been over this story before. Another big game out of
Put him in
the
office.
SEC. This was the Rat Bowl, Rat Parlay of the weekend. We're going to talk about A&M running it up on Missouri. This game was never even close. Another top 10 SEC team goes down. Missouri just did not look like they could hang in this game. Looked like they threw in the white towel pretty early as well. This game stinked to high heavens along with the Michigan-Washington game, which I'll group into the same Rat Nation. Yeah, that game was also Washington took care of business at home. Orgy cannot pass the ball.
Got benched.
Orgy's tapped in. He's not tapping anybody out. It's tough out there for the Wolverines after a bad second half and then a letdown performance at Washington. Either of these games you guys want to comment on besides the fact that they were stinky cheese from the beginning?
Refs jerked off A&M pretty hard, and that set the tone early in the A&M Mizzou game. If you look at the first three series, there was a DPI call that was picked up on Missouri's very first drive, which was kind of a set the tone drive. You're coming out of the gates on the road. What are you going to do? They actually just picked it up. They were like, oh, we actually are going to rule this uncatchable.
Were you on the wrong side of this one, Adam?
Sounds like it.
I was on the complete wrong side. On the complete wrong side.
Sounds like it. Anytime you're down 28-0 at half, you got to blame the refs.
But then no, dude, the second drive, they had a 75-yard touchdown called back, and that one was a legitimate ghost call. I've absolutely zero idea where.
Yeah, you can see him on TBS on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, fuck them. And then they had 7 other penalties called on Missouri and none on A&M through the first quarter. Majority of those, once again, just little nitpicky, fucking home field bullshit penalties. And then I think the cherry on top for me was watching a Texas A&M player actually shove a referee and have nothing called against him, against his team. I don't know what's going on with the SEC with everybody pulling out and fucking shooting people on the field, like
brandishing a
weapon.
I remember
the backlash.
15 yards.
Adam,
Imagine
you're wearing the camo hat right now. I dare to say that you like a nice rifle yourself.
I do, but I'm also an advocate for gun safety. I can promise you none of those weapons are registered. I can also say that I support that 100%. But then furthermore, their form is fucking terrible. I mean, someone needs to take these kids and put them through 2 classes. One, retake driver's ed, all of them. The University of Georgia has just put a spell across all of college football at this point. The burden of proof, in my mind, is on the players, not the other way around. Like, hey, I understand you might have your license, but, I took driver's ed once too, and I also didn't learn shit. So that's on you. Shout out to Chris Daniels for that. But
The funniest one of the weekend was a game or a clip from like some FCS Division III game where he he hits the sword, and then it's not even like
lifts up his shirt.
he lifts up his shirt, pulls it
and
out,
then he has a handgun, and he just
and he two-hand lines it up too. He goes, He looked like
that
the
was
guy
actually
from the Olympics.
Good form.
That was actually decent enough form. It was more so the foot placement, which was upsetting to me. You know, it's just complete lack of balance for guys that are athletes. You would expect a more natural presence, you know, when handling a firearm. And you know, I think that would be the second course is, you know, just a simple gun safety, figure it out.
Yeah. Although I will
like that a
say,
lot.
Chisum, you were touching on it a little bit earlier, but like those like 50-50 calls or like a bullshit call, those are just the best when they're going on your side. It's like, oh my God, everything is rolling for you. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, literally. Anyways, all right, couple other notable results from this past weekend before we dive into our next week's slate. Ohio State
Don't forget
7,
our underdog story.
Iowa 0 at halftime. Hell of a game in the first half. Had a lot of optimism. That's really all you can ask when you're playing a top-ranked team, especially in the Buckeye program. Wheels fell off in the second half when they were able to control the middle of the field, as we were talking about on the pod last week. You're not going to be able to beat Ohio State when you're making sloppy mistakes and turn the ball over twice inside your own 30. You got to run a completely perfect game if you want to even have a fighting chance to, you know, come out on top there. But final result, Ohio State 35, Iowa 7. You guys have any takeaways from this game for the Hawkeyes or the Buckeye program?
You know, this Hawkeye team got a lot out of us last year in terms of spinning our wheels, getting frustrated, getting angry. It's hard to get about that angry again. I think we're still moving in the right direction offensively from a coordinator standpoint. I know it was hard to watch. I don't think we're moving in the right direction from a head coach standpoint, that we are actively working to compete in these type of games. It truly feels like we are resigned to the fact and have come to the terms with, hey, we can churn out 9 to 10 win seasons focused on beating competition that's lesser than us, while not necessarily playing in the same arena as the upper echelon competition. I would used to be a program and a team that top 5 teams, top 10 teams were scared to play. We might not get them every time, but fuck it, you're in for a dogfight, and it's going to be you're going to have to come out and you're going to have some bumps and bruises. It just doesn't feel the way that we are structuring our offense as college football has progressed and changed and how it's played. Look, the SEC. SEC used to be a defense-oriented conference. Now it's mainly offense, I'd say, with a lot of good athletes. We're just not going to be able to compete with these top-level teams, and I'm resigned to that fact for the time being, and maybe that'll change 5 years from now. But for the time being, we're turning out 9-10 win wins a season, not competing against the upper echelon. Let's go take care of business at home against a streaking Washington team this week and see where we're at.
Exactly what you just touched on earlier, how these top-ranked teams were scared to play Iowa, you know, in the past decade, 15 years or so. If before this week, before week 6 wrapped up, we said that 5 of the top 11 teams were going to lose this week, and Iowa's matched up against one of them, you'd expect Iowa to be one of those upsets, right? And it's just kind of disappointing. I mean, can I be disappointed we didn't beat Ohio State on the road? No, not really. But like, I'm optimistic, you know, saying that we would be in that game and be in that conversation. But when you're kind of hamstringed with this offense, you really can't expect that.
The most chicken shit stuff I've seen of all time that first half with the timeout.
God, the fake punt, the fake punt timeout, and then you actually do punt it away. Bro.
The craziest thing to me is, and this is where it comes to like us not even trying to compete with these top teams on some level, is we played about as good of a first half as you could play. We moved the ball. We left some points out there. We didn't convert. We made it to the other side of the field. But our defense played unbelievable and was giving us opportunity after opportunity. And if we played that exact same game again in the second half, which is not replicable, like we're not going to be winning the turnover battle 2-0 again in the second half on the road, we'd still lose 14-0. It's what's the goal of this game? Is it to win, or is it just to play your style of football? And that's tough. But it's Kirk Ferentz ball. It's what we've seen for a long time. I'll probably be pretty happy this weekend after Iowa hopefully stomps out Washington. Might be on my card, just a preview. Texas Pete, any other games or Old System you want to tag in there?
I think last thing to mention about Iowa is number one, a stat that I read recently that absolutely blew my mind was specifically about how Cade McNamara hasn't thrown a passing touchdown against a power conference team since the 2021 Big Ten championship when he was playing against Iowa. That was the last touchdown he's thrown for against the Power 5 team. Second of all, I was looking for the exact stat, but I'm pretty sure it was pre-2018. So like Stanley's last season, Iowa was 8-8 against top-ranked opponents. I believe it was top 10 opponents specifically. Since then, we are 0-8.
Yeah.
We
seems like it.
are getting. I mean, we at least scored points against Ohio State, albeit it was, Caleb Johnson doing his thing late in the game when it was already over. But, we didn't get completely shut out for the first time in 2 years now. It's really, really depressing watching the talent on defense get wasted year over year, coming up on 5-6 years now. And you want to hope and you want to pray that letting Tim Lester start to bring new life to the offense is going to happen. But to your point as well, Turner, I don't know how much he'll be able to make any change with Kirk still at, the head coaching spot, firmly believing that the least important stat is offensive yards per game. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. Hey, Ohio State, huge game this weekend. Once again, a little teaser for later. I still think they started opening up Will Howard a little bit more this game and letting him run a little bit, but I still think they're leaving a lot under wraps in terms of what they're going to present to Oregon. If they would have won that game, it would have topped or maybe been right there with Vandy in terms of underdog stories. One other game I guess I'll highlight on the weekend, and then we should get into our segment because this is two other games because it's getting beefy already for a pod here. Number 11 USC losing to Minnesota. Minnesota showed well against the second half against Michigan and then grinded them out. Scott Frost was able to get the team fired up. Before the game, Scott actually had his players take a shot of confidence juice. What could be in confidence juice? Is this a Michael Jordan movie? Is this Space Jam? No, he just had Sprite
Scott?
in there. Or, oh, fuck, I didn't mean to say Scott Frost. Yeah, I don't know where that came from, Adam.
Are you okay?
Blacked out there for a second.
You look good.
I was rowing the boat, dude.
Ski-U-Ma. It's actually Sky-U-Ma. I figured that out recently.
Wrong.
But
fucking dumb as shit. Dumb as shit.
PJ Fleck had him taking out these shots of Sprite, and that's pretty funny to me.
PJ Fleck looks like a fucking idiot in that quarter zip and tie combination that he rocks on the sideline. He looks like a fucking clown, man. Like, holy shit.
He looks like...
He's from my hometown, so I should be a PJ Fleck fan. But there's just something about... Yeah, absolutely.
The amount of times we've spent clowning PJ Fleck on this episode, or not episode, this podcast, just...
Yeah.
It probably leads the nation.
He looks like a fucking dweeb, man.
He looks like either the worst history teacher or the worst math sub ever. And instead he's coaching a Power 4 college football team.
That just beat USC.
While being like, I think my favorite thing about Fleck is that he is multiple sources on record saying how much of a piece of shit he and his wife are. But even more than that is that's a simple like eye test. You don't really need to dig or find sources. You could just tell. I don't like this guy.
The umpire at his kid's Little League game is just rolling his eyes whenever PJ shows up. He's like, oh my fucking God.
You'd be lying.
You be recruiting?
You'd be lying to me if PJ Fleck's never heard somebody call him hobo penis face.
He does have a hobo penis face.
Oh, man.
We're all God's children, but
all right.
I don't know.
I never want him to leave Minnesota.
Week 6.
It's too good.
Week 6 college football. You got another one you want to touch on?
I just wanted to call out ACC After Dark. Miami
Yeah,
Cam still in the
phenomenal.
Heisman contention. Unbelievable comeback. Miami is the cardiac kids. They might be must watch the rest of the way of the year. Just one of those games where, holy shit, I did fall asleep before this one finished. And I
Yeah.
thought, I went to bed like, damn. I had Cal spread, which was double digits, so felt good about that. But woke up, holy cow, Miami. What a finish to the game. Watch the highlights. Cam just has that ability to make something happen out of nothing. He also is kind of like old Chisum when it comes to betting. He's either a warm faucet or a cold shower.
Warm faucets. Very nice. Week 6
Straw
college
in a bath,
football.
baby.
You were very good to us. If this is any indication how the rest of the season is going to go, we're in for a real treat. But just to recap some of our plays from this past week, Texas Pete, not a good one for your boy here. He went 2-6, so he's 14, 18, and 1 on the season. Chisum, what'd you go last week? 1, 2, 3,
5,
4,
4 and 11,
4,
and
11,
1.
and 1. So he's up to 33, 38, and 2 on the season. Run it back,
Two
Jones
pushes,
going
man.
even 500 last week, 3-3 from his week
Indeed.
6 plays, and he
3-3.
is still
taking a big lead.
above
I was gonna say,
500
dude.
for the season at 19 and 17 year to date. Top dog,
I gotta
Mr.
be
Dude,
honest.
Jones.
that's like,
I gotta be honest, the 3 plays we missed, Navy at Air Force, under system play.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that one. Boston College at Virginia. That's the
DC
Texas
hurt.
Pete, Old Chisum. Those are some hot guys telling you some hot picks. Gotta
Yep.
follow that one. Syracuse at UNLV.
Electric
This is
game.
on me, hand up. I did not know the Kyle McCord Heisman campaign. I thought it was dead. I thought it was dead to rights. It's alive.
You just can't get on
thought
the
we
right
killed
side of
him.
Kyle McCord, and trust me, I am, and
I
it
could
feels
not
great.
figure it
It feels fucking awesome. This guy is the man. I want to have a beer with him.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but Turner, you taking it last week with a 500 record is, going out with your buddies and, you take the skin on the par 5 with a bogey. Everybody else is just OB 3 times. Can't figure it the fuck out. Stuck in a greenside bunker. You're in hell. Meanwhile, you're just chilling, nice little 2-3 putt bogey, get off the green, get back to the transfusion, make some magic happen on that par 3.
I played some golf this weekend. I'm an underdog when I approached the golf course. It wasn't very pretty. Whatever, doesn't matter. We're going to talk about underdogs in life. The biggest ones from the professional level, the collegiate level, and then the fictional, the most important one, the fictional level. And we all came with a few picks. I wouldn't necessarily call this a draft as much as a selection, draft selection maybe. And we're just going to go down the line, pick them up, see what happens. And I think we're going to start, since this is a college football podcast, with our favorite all-time collegiate upsets. We drew numbers out of a hat before the pod started. Texas Pete won, so he's been going first on collegiate, and then we're going to go AK, Old Chisum's first for professional, and then I'll go ahead and take fictional, and we'll just kind of keep it in order. So Texas Pete, go ahead and start us off with your all-time number 1 collegiate athletics underdog story.
Yep. So this one is going to be specifically related to our listeners out there who were born in the late 90s here. So this is probably going to be one of those first monster upsets that come to your mind. I know it's been sticking around in my head for the past decade and a half. That's going to be App State at Michigan, 2007. Absolute classic. App State coming in. One of the favorite aspects of upsets for me is when the legacy good team pays the shitty team to come play them. So this was just a filler on the schedule. App State got paid $400,000 to come into the big house, and the fact that it was on the road as well just adds the sweetener to the pot here. They fought this one out. It was a close game. I think there were 30-something point dogs coming into it. But I just remember thinking, holy shit, that was a big play, or that was a big game. And it's just been repeating in my mind ever since. So I'm going with App State at Michigan in 2007 as one of the first early upsets of my young life.
That's a great pick. I think it comes to mind for a lot of us. I remember exactly where I was like, holy shit, Michigan lost. You're watching the highlights. You see the blocked kick. it's an all-timer. The Big House, Marty Schottenheimer. It's just great stuff.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, the thing about these upsets, it's like you can almost pinpoint exactly where you were when they happened. So that's what I'm kind of adding into the memorable scale for these guys. What do you guys have for the collegiate? Are we going to stick with collegiate? Or we're going to bounce around.
I don't know why I said Marty Schottenheimer. Lloyd Carr, 2007. All right, go ahead, Chisum.
Am I collegiate as well?
You have to stay within the boundaries of collegiate. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with a name that very few Iowans will soon forget, and that is Ali Farouk-Manesh in the 2010 UNI Panther basketball team going, and I believe they were a 9 seed, knocking off number 1 Kansas. I don't really remember a lot from
Perry Ellis's freshman season.
UNI basketball. Yeah, Perry Ellis, the start of a good 12-year career at the University of Kansas. But I just remember watching this little Jew run around, have the time of his life with shorts down to his shins. And, for a moment, the world was simple. Everyone was kind of
his pants were so low.
Dude, everybody's were back then. I remember if I ever had a pair of shorts even remotely close to my knees, it's like, Mom, what the hell are you doing?
Do you remember at the end of that? It wasn't like they won on a buzzer beater or something. Farouk-Manesh,
they were
pulled up on a 3 to
like
make it like a 3-possession game with like 20 seconds left when they should have probably pulled the ball out and played the free throw game.
Right.
Just putting it down.
He's actually an assistant out in Colorado State now. Still got a name to himself, living in infamy forever. You and I went on to lose to Michigan State in the next round. I remember that because of how electric the Kansas win was.
Right.
Holy shit. Ali Farouk-Manesh. Kevin Harlan was on the call for that game, which just makes it all the better. Shout out Kevin Harlan. This guy's been the top of his game for a decade plus. And the call is what makes that moment as good as it is, too.
Kevin Harlan is always on. He's one of those announcers where if you're getting Kevin Harlan,
you're in for a good one.
You're getting A plus effort, and 1 or 2 zingers kind of back half of the game.
Yeah, he doesn't mess around. Love Kevin Harlan. All right, I'll go ahead and rip mine. Stanford Cardinals over USC Trojan, also in the Lord's year of 2007.
Yep.
39-point spread for this game. This was when the Trojans were on the top of their game.
John David Booty.
Yeah, you were doing some research. It might have been a second or third pick. John David Booty was the starting quarterback for USC. He sure was Booty. I'd like to also call out that this was John Harbaugh's first season at Stanford. Jim, they did not make a bowl game that year, but you could see that they were building the stepping stones to something, especially with this win. The big play for Stanford, if you watch the highlights for this game, a Moss-like touchdown on the left side of the end zone. Sweet play. Had a family member growing up that went to Stanford. He would always gift us with a bunch of Stanford swag. Was never really too cool to wear around if you didn't think you were going to get in there. Not necessarily an athletic powerhouse, but this was the start of something. This was the start of something new, as they say in High School Musical. And yeah, it was a great upset. It was a great win.
You're telling me running back Jones wasn't applying to Stanford? Didn't think we'd get in?
In 2007, I think the dream was still alive.
Yeah, very true. That is very true.
Time.
All right.
You guys had better dreams than I did in 2007.
What were your dreams at 10, Adam?
Hatman.
I was just hoping. I was just waiting for Notre Dame to not lose to Navy, but that also happened in 2007.
Hell of a year.
Yeah.
That's like the classic year if you is it 2007 or 2011 where if you like Pat White, Steve Slaton for West Virginia.
The West Virginia team.
Yeah, that's like the
I was
year
thinking
that
about this too.
Everything went to chaos. Was 2007. Nothing made sense
for Stanford. How many years after that first Harbaugh season led to Toby Gerhart, and then thereafter Christian McCaffrey, and thereafter got Harbaugh to the 49ers.
Christian McCaffrey was David Shaw years. They did have Bryce Love in there too, but yeah, Harbaugh to Gearhart, he left, I think, in 2011, 2012, so it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, what a turnaround.
All right.
2011 was the year I was thinking of with all the chaos. Some great YouTube videos behind that one. All right, so we're going to move on to professional. Old Chisum is up. Texas Pete, you're going to have to continue to wait your turn through running back Jones and Old Chisum. All right, go ahead, Old Chisum. Professional upset.
Number one, they're every October I go back and I watch a 30 for 30 called 4 days in October.
This is my number one, Adam. This is top of my list.
This is the greatest upset, greatest underdog story. It's even better than the Chicago Cubs, purely because of the fact that it was against the New York Yankees. They were down 3-0. The curse of the Bambino was fully alive, and the Boston Red Sox, against all odds, came back from being down 3 games in the ALCS to their bitter, most hated rival on a team just fucking chalked to the brim with Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. The bloody sock, Dave Roberts stealing second, Ortiz kind of coming into his own, a Senor Octubre. This is our fucking city. All of these things would not have happened or transpired were it not for those 4 nights in October. Joe Buck on the call too. That was kind of the start of me not hating Joe Buck, was the and we'll see you later tonight. You know, it really did. Those first 7 years of my life on Earth without, you know, any real lore of Red Sox fandom disappeared fairly quickly, and it led to 4 more championships after that ALCS. So give me Boston.
Yeah, this one's awesome. Johnny Damon, you got the sweetest ass in the league. If you don't get a movie made out of your professional sports underdog story, then it's hard to compete. I just wanted to call out some of the names here because this truly is. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was watching when they first, because this is actually 20-year anniversary this year of that season. So they brought the team back for like opening day and a lot of those things. And Johnny Damon somehow found his way into the press box and was on mic on camera to kick off the year, and he actually called out that line from Fever Pitch like 3 separate times, where he's like, well, you know, I did used to have the sweetest ass in the league. And then he was,
It's
and
such
then
a
that
good
was the
line.
first time. Second time, he's like, you know what? I think if I went out and played, I'd probably still have the best ass in the league. And I was just like, you're really getting into this, Johnny. Like, try not to get a DUI on the way home, bud. But he's had a rough patch post-retirement, but
He's still got the sweetest ass in the league, always will. The names in the series, it's like it's like the best, highest level of baseball ever reached in terms of national prominence. Like this felt like kind of the transition period where if NFL already wasn't more popular, it definitely took over the daily dialogue. And then now NBA is kind of a bit of a TMZ whore. But Johnny Damon, Orlando Cabrera, Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, Kevin Millar, Trot Nixon, Jason Varitek. Like, these are all names you know. Trot Nixon. Unreal. Derek Jeter. All the Trots you see now that are 19 playing collegiate sports is because of Trot Nixon. Just want to throw that out there. Well, Derek Jeter.
For the record,
Rodriguez.
I was just going to say his name's Christopher, but his middle name is Trotman.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Christopher Trotman.
I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight.
Nixon. Durham, North Carolina native.
Best state in the
Jeter, A-Rod, Sheffield, Hideki, Bernie, Jorge Posada. Bernie Williams, that is. If you look at Fox baseball coverage now, think about who's in the booth pre-post game. It's because of this series. A-Rod, Jeter, Ortiz. And that's why this will probably be and always will be baseball's apex in the modern era. Great pick, Adam.
But
top of my list.
Mark Bellhorn was our hero that postseason. We got to put some props on his name. Kevin Millar getting on base. God, fire me.
All right, Mr. Jones, what do you got?
All right, we're going to go with Francis Ouimet. Great American. I don't know. Shia LaBeouf, just American legend. You got to have a movie made after you to be in contention for my top professional underdog stories. The greatest game ever played. The story of a U.S. champion. It was great when they went back to Boston semi-recently for the U.S. Open. You got to relive those moments.
Brookline, baby.
Just going to go with Francis. Wasn't there to witness it, but it's a wonderful story, and it's one that I'll never forget.
What was it, 1919 U.S. Open?
Sure was. Right. I didn't do too much research. I was just like, God damn it, Francis, what?
I mean, he was the first amateur to ever win a major. 13. Wow.
He showed those English boys. He showed those English boys what was up too.
Fuck you, Harry Vernon.
I'll tell you what. Another underdog story that we all know and love. I guarantee I can't name a specific movie, but it's been referenced throughout pop culture and pregame speeches across the world. We have Buster Douglas versus Iron Mike Tyson in 1990. Buster Douglas came in as a 41-1 underdog. This is the peak of Mike Tyson's career. The reason this resonated most with me is I would always hear that my grandpa would always tell me this story growing up, before you played the good football team. And he'd give you the hard work beats talent, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. It's basically that story personified. Unfortunately, Iron Mike always got the best of me in my career, but nonetheless, hell of a story. Coming in 41-1 dog. Come on, baby. Yeah.
That's a great story. I was actually watching some Mike Tyson highlights on, what was it, Friday night this last weekend. And it wasn't even fighting highlights. It was just like crazy quotes out of Mike Tyson. Dude, it's such a legend. He's a goofy guy, funny guy. People forget convicted criminal. Don't need to make that a part of the story today.
100%.
It's about Buster Douglas. That's who we're talking about. 41-1.
Can you imagine if the early Twitter years or early social media years when athletes would actually run their accounts, if Mike Tyson had a Twitter account or had the ability to go live on Instagram, what kind of content we'd get out of
him? That's one of the best things.
Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Texas Pete, I couldn't imagine. He probably would have been done way earlier.
Yeah.
Or he would have been more like an AB, maybe an AB style guy where his first 5 to 10 years, he is absolute Hall of Famer, undefeated. And then in the late career years, it just gets a little unhinged CTE ESPN.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, underdog stories. We all love them. We love them in real life. And we love them even more when it's fictional and in movies.
I got 4. Yeah, let's go.
So I'll kick us off here with this one.
But before we do fictional, we gotta at least mention the Miracle on Ice,
have honorable
right?
mentions at the end, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
No doubt.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start Texas Pete because that's how this works. You started one, old Chisum started one. Now it's Mr. Jones's turn. I'm going to go with Dodgeball, a true underdog story.
Yes.
I mean, White Goodman might be the biggest on-screen villain of all time. You got Peter LaFleur with his ragtag band of dodgeballians. They're just working it up, dude.
All-time quotable movie.
It is.
Oh, shit.
It's top of the notch. I want to find another fictional story that's labeled, listed, and titled as a true underdog story and lives through to that promise the rest of the way through the movie. Sure, there's maybe more deserving candidates, but I don't know if there's a more rewarding candidate.
All-time quotable movie. You could go in any 2-minute excerpt from that film and you're going to get a quote that you probably use in your everyday life.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Very good impression. Yes. I don't know if I could follow that one up, but I might.
Pretty good.
Michelle. Yeah.
This is my fitness consigliere, Michelle White. W-H-I-T-E. Yeah. Good one. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. I got one here. One that we'll never forget. The year of my birth, 1998. we have the South Central Louisiana State University Mud Dogs in the 1998 Bourbon Bowl versus the Cougars. That's right. We're talking Waterboy and Bobby Boucher battling it out for the Bourbon Bowl. I mean, these guys, the Mud Dogs were on a 40-game losing streak before Bobby came on campus. I mean, you can't draw it up better than that. This guy just single-handedly turned around the program and won the Bourbon Bowl for him. So, yeah, that's what we're going with here. Waterboy.
Waterboy's a great pick. I haven't seen Waterboy in a while, and I think I need to revisit it.
It's been a minute. It was an all-time TV movie growing up, but I haven't seen it as of late.
Remember the time Bobby Boucher came back and the Mud Dogs were in the Bourbon Bowl?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and say those are two great movie selections, but if you want to talk on-screen villains and you want to talk upsets, I think we need to look no further than the Junior Goodwill Games and the sequel to the Mighty Ducks. I'm talking the D2 Mighty Ducks. Emilio Estevez is Gordon Bombay, leading out his girlfriend's son. Maybe it's just a hookup thing, but he's still got to watch the kid on the weekends. The Ducks went from a bottom tier junior league team in the greater Twin Cities area in the state of Minnesota to playing on a national stage in the Junior Goodwill Games. Team Iceland is the greatest movie villain of all time, partially because you have all of them being 14, 15-year-olds, and they all have some form of a mustache. It is something that I recall as a child looking at and saying, holy fucking shit. I didn't even really know that was possible, but Wolf Stanson as the head coach for the team, equally terrifying. The dude had the most slicked back hair, like even more slicked back than when Tim Robinson was a piece of shit. And I think you should leave. This is obviously pre when he built the deck at the haunted house in Club Aqua, but Julie the Cat Gaffney really, saved the day, and America once again shined through.
Nice. Absolutely.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Good work, dude.
Honorable mentions across the board.
Minneapolis, loved it.
I
had Rocky 4 listed. If he dies, he dies. That's just all-timer. USA. US. Getting the commie Russians to chant USA. That might be the biggest stretch in film history, but fuck it. I love it. That's my honorable mention for fictional, at least.
You guys ever see the movie The Little Giants?
Long time.
No, I don't think so.
One of my favorite childhood films. Rick Moranis is Danny O'Shea. Ed O'Neill is Kevin O'Shea. It's a battle of the O'Shea brothers to see who has the bragging rights to Urbana, Ohio Pee Wee football. Pop Warner.
It's like think about an older version of Kicking and Screaming, but on the football field and with brothers instead of a dad to son relationship.
Okay, yeah.
And there's also a little bit of there's some testiness of gender norms. Is Becky the Icebox O'Shea battles between being an absolute crash out linebacker / wanting to be a cheerleader so that she can get in Junior's pants at the age of 11. It's apparently there's some hornballs. Yeah, there's some hornballs in Ohio, but Spike don't play with girls. A lot of quotes coming out of that kid's mouth throughout the film. Also a lot of Tren going into his system for how young he was. He didn't need to be doing all that.
Yeah, I got a couple honorable mentions. The first being the war on drugs. Talk about an upset story. Drugs beat the war in that case.
Yeah.
Don't really need to go into any further detail.
That's not fictional though.
No, not fictional. But what is fictional here? I probably would have had this on my list had they ended up winning the championship, but it'd be Coach Carter and the Richmond High School basketball team turning the program around. All-time movie. Actually going to Richmond next weekend. So I imagine I'll be screaming that a few times. And the last honorable mention I have would be the white straight male versus the end of the job application. We all have jobs, so hey, that's an underdog story here. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for honorable mentions. You guys got anything else, or should we roll
Miracle
into the
on
week
Ice, Adam.
7
Miracle on
slate?
Ice.
Yeah, Miracle on Ice was incredible. What else? The Giants beating the Patriots, upsetting their perfect season. That was a pretty good upset. Eli Manning owning Tom Brady was not on
Our
anybody's
lives were
NFL
forever
bingo cards,
changed
but
by that. I mean, think about it.
that
Randy
helmet
Moss
catch, yeah.
would have felt more secure in himself. He wouldn't be doing as much TV. Eli Manning probably wouldn't be able to do the Manning cast without just feeling like Peyton's bum younger brother. Worlds collided in that moment and forever changed. So that's a good one. Haven't had an undefeated team really ever. So let's just get into the picks. We're an hour deep into this bad boy.
Yep. Thank you all for
good
listening.
things to come. Where do we want to start? Do we just get right into the game of the week? Oregon Ducks versus the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Wild that that's the game of the week, but
Is it not your game of the week, Adam?
well, I mean, Red River rivalry is happening, but it's just Oklahoma kind of shit the bed on that one.
All right. Ohio State, Oregon.
Yeah, Adam, we're going to get to the Red River rivalry.
We will.
All right.
The Red River rivalry will be discussed.
We're going to get there.
All right. That team out west. Coach Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks have their first test in the Big Ten. Let's see what they have. See if they're cut out for it. I mean, if you want to be a top-tier program in the Big Ten, I'm not saying they have to necessarily go out and beat Ohio State on their inaugural year, but they need to put up a fight, and they need to make a statement to the other teams in the conference. I like that it's kind of a homecoming game. Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly coming back to the program he took to a national title game over a decade ago.
It is.
So I don't think he has any inside scoops. A little bit too far removed from the program, but just something to keep an eye out for. I'm sure he's got a couple tricks up his sleeve, as running back Jones was mentioning. I don't necessarily think that Ohio State has really, played their full hand yet. So I'm assuming we're going to see something good out of them. But other than that, I mean, I was struggling deciding who I wanted to take for this game. And whenever it comes down to that, I typically just pick the side of the quarterback I like more. But that being said, I don't think Will Howard does it for me, and I don't think Dylan Gabriel does either. Will
Howard at least has a cannon. Dylan Gabriel's a bit of a noodle arm.
Dylan Gabriel, I feel like, has
Will
just been kind of
Howard's
disappointing.
not always the best decision maker.
It's like, if you were in a 2-minute drill, who would you want at the helm? Would you want Will Howard or would you want Dylan Gabriel? Open question.
Probably better offensive coordinator. Give me Will Howard, I guess. But Dylan Gabriel could also probably be better at the 3-step drop, 10-yard, 3-step drop, 10-yard kind of march.
Right.
Minute 15, give me Will Howard. 2 minutes, 35 seconds, give me Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. So I couldn't come to that decision. So I'm going to lean on the piece, which is, I think, going to be the, biggest point for us this game. And that's going to be Ohio State's defense. If they're able to keep the top on the defense, prevent Oregon from hitting those bombs over the top or just opening up the middle of the field, I think they're going to be able to, really utilize Will Howard's, White Boy Willie's strengths in just managing the game, get the ball in your playmakers' hands and have them do it, as opposed to having the pressure on you and having to go out and win it themselves. So I'm going to be ultimately taking the Buckeyes in this one. I'm laying 3.5 points, over-unders at 53.5. I think more than likely, given the destruction we've kind of seen in the Big Ten this season, that we're probably going to see a rematch in the Big Ten title game. So if these two teams do rematch, who do you guys have in it, barring any injuries or anything fluky like that? Would you take Ohio State twice? Would you take Oregon twice? Would you think they split it? Or does that not really factor into your guys' equations?
I think it's hard to beat the team twice. Right now, I'd take Ohio State. I think Ohio State's the more complete team. Their defense is pretty damn locked down. They necessarily haven't been tested like a team with this capabilities and skills. I think Oregon's played a slightly more difficult schedule so far, with the likes of Boise State, Oregon State in their non-conference. Sure, are they world beaters? No. Boise State's a pretty good team. Oregon State still has Power 5 pedigree, Power 4 pedigree. And they haven't looked necessarily overly impressive. Meanwhile, I think that Ohio State offensively just has the answers to every equation. And I think that Iowa in the first half will only make them better. Iowa did make them look pedestrian for a whole half of football. And Iowa's offense, frankly, let them down a little bit in the second half to allow for Ohio State to continue to score. But Ohio State just has a dialed-in defense. I think they're still the most talented team in the country. I don't know. It's tough. It's on the road. That changes things. My play for this game is going to be Ohio State over team total 28.5. I don't think this Oregon team has been super impressive defensively this year. Look at the 34 points Boise State put up against them. I think that both teams will be able to score a little bit, but ultimately I think Ohio State should run away with this. But granted, it's on the road. We'll see what happens. I just feel more comfortable rocking with Ohio State's offense than rocking with anything else right now. And I think they're going to score more than 20.5 points.
Any thoughts?
I'm with you guys. Yeah, I'm
going to be on. Are you a Mountain Dew swirl over there or what? What's good?
No, I'm Mountain Dew regular because I'm a Republican. And
I wasn't sure if you were just swirling from that Chosky.
No, I'm a jaw dog through and through.
That Leon Trotsky.
Yeah, don't you ever forget Lenny Dykstra walked so that we could all sprint to the home plate. But I have a really hard time seeing Oregon being competitive in this game. Because of the edge, because of the edge that Ohio State has. They're such a complete team. Oregon has yet to cover a spread at home this year. They're 1-4 ATS in general. They really just haven't lived up to expectations that they themselves set. The team has definitely regressed this year as well. I feel like they just don't look like the same team they were last year. And even that team went 0-2 against Washington, couldn't figure it out when it mattered most. I expect that trend to continue.
Adam, question. Do you think they could be maybe not the team they were last year, but still be top 5 this season based on what we've seen?
It really depends, because what you saw last week was SEC versus SEC. As we get into more Big Ten versus Big Ten, I think you're going to see similar results. This isn't a good example because it's, two of the top teams in the conference going head to head. But honestly, I'm more interested in watching Oregon go against the Indianas, the Illinois of the world, those middle of the pack Big Ten teams that could easily just fuck your shit up on any given Wednesday.
To just take care of business.
Mm-hmm. And they do, and they have, and they know the way at which the Big Ten football is played. Washington got it firsthand against Rutgers in a game that they, by all means, should have won 8 different times. They just couldn't figure it out. It's more physical. It's more in your face. It's smash mouth. And I think Ohio State is a lot more used to that than an Oregon team, which is known for style points and being flashy with their uniforms. So no discredit to Dan Lanning. He's doing a phenomenal job. I've never been a Dylan Gabriel fan, and Will Howard is so much more dynamic. I don't understand how he's as fast as he is.
You're a huge Ibuka fan, but maybe talk about Jeremiah Smith. He's wide receiver number 1 for this Ohio State team. Am I wrong?
He's their home run hitter. Ibuka is the guy that's going to be open and get you the 7-8 yards on a 3rd and 5.
Keeps the drive alive
every time. Yeah, he's going to be the guy that gets the majority of targets. We don't talk nearly enough about the 1-2 punch that is Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. The fact that they have not 1 but 2 of the best running backs in the country. It's like I would love to see either of them in the Mountain West. Like, would they be comparable to Jeanty, or is it just the luck of the draw that they're splitting carries and they're also in a power 4. But the dynamic duo of Jack Sawyer and JT Tuamalayo, however you say his last name, I'm way too white to pronounce that shit. They're going to be fun, not only the rest of this year, but the NFL level as well. They just play nasty. They play mean. It's the way that football's supposed to be played, and I think they do a better job of that than Oregon does. I would be honestly shocked if Oregon came out and covered the spread, let alone was in position to win.
I'm kind of surprised.
I have this as around like a 5-point spread on a neutral site, so I'm willing to take it.
I don't know. I mean, I think if Ohio State is able to leverage their split backfield, as you mentioned, I think they're going to be able to manage this game perfectly fine. But if it comes down, it's a blow for blow game and both teams are throwing punches, I don't know if I necessarily trust Will Howard at the helm to kind of, put up 40 odd points on the road. But that being said, I hope it doesn't get there. So are you locking in Ohio State for that game or anything cute?
Yeah, I'll do Ohio State. I'll probably end up on that team total over as well.
You like that one?
I love that. Yeah.
Nice.
I think both of those. I think it's a good correlation.
Play of the week, running back Jones team total tsunami.
That's what we're going with.
Season.
All right.
I don't know. I was trying to think of another T, but it sounds like an ass.
So what do you say we go to another game of the week for some of us who are domiciled in the great state of Texas? And that is
the Red River.
The Red River rivalry. Texas versus Oklahoma. Texas is coming in 14.5-point favorites. Over under is set at 49. What do you guys think about this one?
I haven't had a lot of research into this one. It's not going to be on my card. I will say this. I'm always fired up anytime you get a chance to watch the Red River rivalry down at the Texas State Fair. Absolute scenes. You got half the stadium Sooners, half the stadium Longhorn fans. It's always a blast. And if anything, if you're just going to fucking throw a bet on this one, to throw a bet because it is the Triple R, you got to take the over, dude. It's not the Red River rivalry anymore. You got to turn that bitch into a shootout. And that's what it's going to be, hopefully, this weekend. I don't think Oklahoma's going to let that happen. I think Oklahoma's going to do everything in their ability to slow this down, slug it up, mud it up. Texas is obvious favorites. We'll see if they're able to pull through. But when it's a rivalry game, you got to throw out the record books, baby.
I think a 2 full score spread in a rivalry game like this is absurd.
I do too. I mean, I get that Texas is warranting a 2-score spread
14.5
at a neutral site, but like that's so many points. And the other thing about the Red River rivalry is that it always plays competitive. It is always. I would go on record in saying that the Red River rivalry is the most entertaining rivalry in all of college football consistently. Every year. It's always a good game.
If I can just interject a quick stat,
I think the money line play. Go ahead.
So 8 out of the last 9 games, 8 out of the last Red River rivalry games have been decided by 8 points or less. So just didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to toss it in there. Yeah.
That's a great stat. Yeah, I think this is a live line game. See how they look coming out of the gates. They're either heavily leaning one way or the other. Quinn Ewers should be back this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dude. Like, I could see Texas going out and winning by, fucking 30. I could see them shitting their pants in the first half and letting it kind of be a close game. It really will depend on, does Oklahoma's defense go to bat against the Texas offense? That's going to be such a fun matchup. It always is every year. The Danny Stutzman, they call me communion, how I'm a cracker with the juice or something like that. That caption was created out of this game last year. Just legendary for all white guys everywhere to, see it be done. We'll see if you can do it again. I don't know. I think it'll be a fun game. I just, from a betting perspective, the only thing that really makes sense jumping off of the page is Oklahoma plus 14.5, but I don't feel comfortable throwing that.
Yeah. So, yes.
I'm sledding over these team totals. Maybe under Texas 32.5. Do we think that Oklahoma can hold them to under 32.5?
I
Because
think Oklahoma's
I guess at
defense
that
is
point, you
pretty
might as well
legit.
parlay that with
I feel like it'll be similar to the Iowa game last week where the defense will be able to do
It's
enough
10-0,
early,
10-3
but
at
like
half.
eventually the
They're on the
offense's
field.
inability to give them, good field position or the ability for them to, keep the defense off the field. I feel like they're just going to be gassed by the end of the game. Anthony Hill Jr. will be on a fucking tear on Saturday. I can promise you that. He's going to be a stud at the NFL level. Talking like DeMarvion Overshown, but potentially
I'll keep an eye on
better.
it, baby.
Yeah,
Keep
he's
an eye
a
on that.
stud.
Yeah. As we mentioned, 2 full scores in a rivalry game, just absolutely absurd. Yes, this Texas team is legit on both sides of the ball. Yes, Oklahoma is struggling to find their identity on offense. However, Oklahoma's new starting quarterback, Michael Hawkins Jr., is about to be the first true freshman to start in the Red River rivalry game versus Texas. I absolutely love the story for the young man.
Stat.
Couple that with Oklahoma's defense and their ability to turn the ball over. I can absolutely see a path through for the Sooners to cover this 14.5 points. I'm not expecting them to win outright, although in a rivalry game, you never know. The system and the analytics are just telling me 14.5 points is just too much for this rivalry game. But they don't call me Texas Pete for nothing.
Analytics team. Is this your Texas play?
I know Grandma Pete would be rolling over in her grave if she heard me betting on the Sooners in the Red River rivalry game. Hook 'em. Give me Texas minus 14.5 for the 5th installment of Texas Pete's Texas Play of the Week presented by Dude Wipes. Come on, we're 4-0 on the season, looking to make it 5, keep the streak rolling, never a doubt. Hook 'em.
People are saying this is a legacy game for you. Sure, anybody can go 4-0 to start the year.
Anyone can.
But come the Red River rivalry, you got to show up. You got to take that down.
I've been saving the Longhorns for the Texas Play of the Week until this moment. This is it. Everyone's looking at that and saying, 14.5, you serious, man? I'm going to take that all day. Not me.
You're breathing heavy over there, baby.
I'll lay it. I'm not worried about it. Yeah. So we're locking in Texas.
All right, another great game this weekend. We got Penn State traveling to SoCal. They're playing at USC. 5.5 point dogs is USC at home. The over-under is set for 50. I mean, USC's been faltering these last few weeks.
Yeah. 0-2 in the Big Ten. They haven't looked super good against Big Ten competition. Going 0-3 to start the Big Ten. That might get screenshot and reposted by Rent Money Burner on Twitter as a Big Ten podcast. USC still has to earn their stripes. They're like any good Yankee baseball player. You got to earn your stripes in the Big Ten before you can start walking around owning the conference. I'm excited for this game. It's always tough when you're traveling out west. It's always tough when you're traveling out east. James Franklin's already bitching about the travel situation. Don't love that. What do you guys like about this game? I love the spot for Penn State. I mean, I think it's because they play Ohio State in a couple weeks. I don't think this is the big game that Penn State loses to fault their season. Historically, that is, knock them out of the playoffs. I think Drew Aller has been adept at his job. He's been doing what's asked of him. He's not asked to do too much. You're going to run the ball. You're going to take care of the ball, not turn it over. I really think that's all it takes to beat this USC team. I don't think you need to get cute with it. So I think their Penn State's top 10 defense across the board in rushing yards, passing yards, points allowed. I think they're just going to lean on them. Miller Moss had a couple bad turnovers last week. I think he's got like 8 picks on the season. I just like the spot for him. I like that under 1 score. I'm going to be laying the points on Penn State minus 5.5 in this game. And hopefully they just live to fight another day, where they play Ohio State in a couple weekends.
Simultaneously to what you said about Drew Aller being able to do what is asked of him, I agree. I think that shows up here. I'm also on Penn State on the road at USC, but I do think that I've wanted to see more from this Penn State offense in terms of explosiveness this season. Last year, we were talking a lot about how they didn't have the ability to make the big play.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't find it all season. It really held them back. It kept them in that more of a 9 to 14 range. We bitch sometimes about being Iowa fans and not being able to get over that hurdle. I think it's probably got to be even more frustrating for Penn State fans that feel like they're even closer to that hurdle, even closer to that next step, that next echelon. I don't think they really understand or know who they're supposed to be. Games like this against USC looked a lot cooler a couple weeks ago when USC was around the top 10. Now they're going to be unranked. And even if they do pull this one out, they're still not going to be kind of given the credit or have the crescendo of curtains closed, we did the damn thing. It is going to come down to that Ohio State game. All the same, against lesser competition, against teams that I think they can outplay, I'm going to take Penn State in this game against the USC team that I think has mediocre home field advantage. Outside of the travel that's responsible for it, the Coliseum is not really necessarily a loud venue, especially not for a Penn State team that doesn't have a lot of historical significance in this rivalry, or when they're 0-2 already in the Big Ten.
Chisum?
Yeah, I hate both of these teams. I feel like Penn State is almost too simple of a play. Like, I feel like I'm missing something here.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a trap line to me. The fact that it's less than a touchdown. I get that they're on the road. I get that there's some form of home field advantage to your point, Turner, but I don't know.
Mediocre.
This game just stinks
Stinky
like
cheese.
shit. It stinks like shit from a butt, and I don't really want to be a part of it. But if I had to be, I would be on Penn State. I wish you two the best of luck.
All right.
Let's go Ole Miss at LSU. LSU is 3.5-point favorites. This is the Magnolia Bowl.
LSU's 3.5-point dogs.
3.5-point dogs. I apologize. Plus 3.5. Over under is set at 62. Dogs at home. Both these teams have one loss to their name. They're both competing for SEC championship berth at the end of the day. I think that's the standard for these fan bases and the expectations for this season. Maybe a little higher for Ole Miss than LSU. Nussmeier versus Jackson Dart should be able to light them up a little bit, and that's reflected with that over-under total of 60 in a big game in a primetime spot. I'm fired up for this game. It should be a shootout.
Yeah, no doubt. Both these quarterbacks can absolutely sling it. I think they both these teams have top 15 pass offenses or something like that, so they're definitely going to be airing it out. This game's going to be chaos, I feel like. Like, I wouldn't be surprised with any result, whether it's a close win or blowout in either direction. But like I mentioned earlier, I typically lean towards the better quarterback in these situations, and I think Jackson Dart, he'll edge out Nussmeier. I would love the Rebels if they were playing in a vacuum here, but the fact they have to go into Tiger Stadium to play this game, that's a 12th man game. That it's got 12th man circled all over it here. Couple stats for you guys. They're a little dig on this game because I wasn't quite sure, but I wanted to have some action on it.
You're just stat junkie tonight, baby. I love it. Texas Pete.
Yeah, muscle.
He's trying to lift some weights. He's trying to come for the muscle, baby.
LSU has won 13 straight home games. Yes, Jaden Daniel was there for a good bunch of them. Doesn't matter. Lane Kiffin's running Rebels team is 1-7 straight up against AP ranked opponents in their last 8. And LSU has won 7 straight versus Ole Miss. So I think the combination of those three really helps solidify my play for this game. I'm taking the Tigers to keep those streaks alive, and I love having the 3.5 hook here. I think Jackson Dart is going to get crushed by the decibels in Tiger Stadium. I don't quite think this Ole Miss program is set up to win in these just absolutely dynamic environments. So I'm taking the Tigers plus 3.5.
I'm also on the Tigers, 3.5 at home. 3.5 points as a home dog in teams that I pretty much would rate fairly evenly. If I was looking at power rankings, looking at the season, Ole Miss's secondary is not necessarily their strong suit. Their run defense is one of the tops in the nation. LSU doesn't run the ball. They don't do it well. They don't really try to do it. I think they're going to continue to exploit that secondary. ultimately, I could see this game being one that just comes down to whoever has the ball less. And that 3.5 points is worth the hook for me. So going to be taking LSU plus 3.5 at home as well. After a week where I just took Ole Miss, don't call me biased. We can go both ways. I just like the way that the Tigers are looking for this matchup. Coming off a bye week, I do want to mention that's always big, especially when you have a new defensive coordinator like LSU does. Get a chance to reset. And offensive coordinator. There you go. Get a chance to reset, reevaluate how the season's gone, make some small tweaks, improve on some things, maybe install some new plays or disguises. I'm shocked that it's 3.5. I know that Ole Miss is a lot better on paper, but damn.
Yeah. There's another game that it's like Lane Kiffin versus Brian Kelly, like who's going to be the reason their team loses. It's less of like who's going to win, and it's more of who's going to lose in my mind.
Wouldn't consider either of them big-time game coaches.
No. They both love choking the games that they could win, but they just can't. I don't know what it is. There's a vex or something on both of them. Lane Kiffin is, I don't even know if he's a real person, but I was doing a deep dive into some of the Hugh Freeze antics that were going on at Ole Miss before he got them on a 2-year bowl suspension. And good fucking Lord, has this guy just bamboozled all of college football into getting not one, but now 2 head coaching jobs in the SEC.
Liberty was the perfect place for him to just kind of go toil away as a troll surrounded by fellow trolls. A little bit under the radar, but also given the right amount of resources to put together one of the better group of teams. But now that he's back at Auburn, holy shit, how did he work his way back into that job? Auburn was willing to sell their soul. I would relate Auburn to the Cleveland Browns. They made a deal with the devil, and now they're paying the piper.
Yeah, I mean, they're bringing in unreal recruiting classes too. Like they just flipped a 4/5-star recruit from Notre Dame, and the kid actually went on paper to say, "Look at Hugh Freeze's quarterbacks. Look at the numbers they put up." And I was like, "Buddy, we are," and it's not exactly an argument that would be in your favor, but go have fun. We'll see if you can do anything with it.
Let's go to a little battle of the Carolinas. I'm not talking South Carolina versus North Carolina. We're talking Clemson at Wake Forest. Clemson's 20.5 point favorites. I think this one might be a Chisum play.
Yeah, I've been pretty outspoken about my disdain for how Clemson has modernized. I will always love Dabo. I think to know Dabo is to love Dabo. As a fellow male that is overly stubborn,
fellow male,
I can kind of
fellow male. I'm one of 50% of the world's population that gets Dabo.
Yeah, we both got wieners, and so for that reason, last week was a little weird. I feel like they had a 16-point win at Florida State. It was fairly understated because of a few possessions where the Tigers just kind of stalled out when they were in scoring territory. And by a few times, it was actually 7 different occasions. They missed 2 field goals, and it could have been a lot better looking of a box score than it was, but they did all in all dominate the game as everyone expected them to. And it was honestly, that was, I would say, the first time this year that Clemson has had that miserable of a struggle where it mattered. I feel like against Georgia, nobody really expected them to do much, if anything at all. And Cade Klubnik has looked better week over week since that Georgia game. I'm expecting that momentum to continue. I'm expecting Wake Forest's bottom 15 defense to allow that momentum to continue. And I know it's a fairly big line and they're on the road, but I feel like Dabo's going to have the boys up and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and stick my neck out, give me Clemson minus 20 and a half.
Yeah, Klubnik wins
at
these
Wake
games.
Forest.
I mean, I don't think he's a big game quarterback. I don't think he has any aura. But he'll come
No
out.
aura.
He'll cover against
Texas Pete has
Wake
spoken.
Forest.
Cade Klubnik
Has got no aura, man. I mean, he comes out, he drops a goose egg against Georgia opening weekend. I mean, I'm not expecting you to win that game, but you got to go out and put on a performance that the Clemson quarterbacks of old have, and when they were national title contenders. I mean, he's serviceable. He's fine. I don't think anyone there.
Some of those old Clemson quarterbacks have a lot of aura, you know?
I mean, at the time in college when you're winning national titles, yeah.
Before they were getting knots and massages left and right. Wake Forest has a fucking dog shit defense. Their defense is no good. They've given up 30 points 3 different times, 4 straight times, to piss poor competition. NC State, Louisiana, Virginia, and Ole Miss. I like this a lot, Caps. This was not something I had in my card, but Clemson's kind of been starting to stomp some of these teams out, and Wake Forest feels like they're primed for a stomping. This might get added to the Twitter card. Love it.
All right. And as always, you can check our full plays on Twitter at RentMoneyBurner. You can see our entire slate. We post a graphic on the Instagram. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. But you can check the Twitter account for our actual full cards here. So why don't we go into the late night game of the weekend? Who doesn't love a Saturday night 10:15 Eastern time kick? Yes, we are talking about K-State at Colorado. Colorado is 4-point dogs at home, and the over-under is set at 56.5. We got a big EMAW guy here on the pod. So, Mr. Jones, why don't you kick us off if you'd like? If not, I got a couple thoughts.
Yeah, we can kick it off. This one's for you, Barter. K-State, Colorado, a return to the Big 8. Every man, parentheses, woman, a Wildcat. This is a fun one. We got some fun quarterbacks here. We got some personalities. We actually have stakes as well between these two teams. There's something on the line for them as the Royals lose the game. There's something on the line for them, both of them. And I think Avery Johnson's going to get it done here. I think that the Kansas State minus 4.5. I think the BYU game, fluky. We were on Kansas State last weekend. This Colorado team has surprised myself, exceeded expectations. Shedeur maybe goes number 1. Who knows? We'll see when we get there. Travis Hunter is, I think, currently second in terms of Heisman favorites. Last year, after about 2 or 3 games, Colorado was kind of deemed the story, which is hilarious because the way they performed this year is like 3 times better than last year, and it has been a little quieter. I think some of that quiet is maybe a little bit by design and good for the program, good for this team. But at the same time, I think this is probably where the road ends for them. This is a legitimate Kansas State team, a legitimate football team. They're going to run them to dust. I do have some concerns about their secondary holding up against Travis Hunter and this team. We saw Tulane put up a lot of points through the air. But they played Arizona on a Friday night. And what did they do? McMillan's down there somewhere, right? Texas Pete. They keyed in and they locked into a guy and they were able to hold him down. He still kind of got his, but ultimately they locked up the offense. I don't see Colorado's offense. I think it's a little bit better than Arizona's, but I see a lot of similarities. I like this Kansas State team at 4.5.
Yeah. I
just do. It should be a fun game.
Dylan Edwards revenge game too, no? Kansas State running back, former Colorado running back.
It is a Dylan Edwards revenge game. I appreciate you calling that out. Dylan Edwards revenge game. Adam's favorite player to play with in college football. It's also DJ Giddens game. He might be my favorite running back to watch. Is it not DJ Giddens? Am I tweaking?
I thought you said TJ. I'm sorry.
No, DJ. DJ Giddens. But he's a Najee Harris type in college without maybe the same level of explosiveness.
He's got a big ass.
Offensive line. He's got a huge ass.
Big ass.
He got big ass. Big ass. He runs pretty upright and tall, and he is super patient. He finds every hole, and he finds a way to just chop off 6 and 7 yard runs over and over again. And actually, last week we saw him go for a 60-yard run. At one point, he was averaging 20 yards per carry in a game recently into the second half. This guy is unbelievable, and I don't think that Texas A&M is going to want to maul up on the line. Texas Pete, Old Chisum, thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I kind of double your sentiment on I'm kind of confused why it's only a 4-point spread. I mean, we've seen time and time again over the past 2 seasons that when Colorado actually squares up with a legitimate opponent, they just get dusted. And Kansas State definitely falls into that legitimate category. So that has me a little bit concerned. Line opened up at 6. It's currently at 4. So clearly money's coming in on the Buffs, but I don't know. My model has this closer to a 6-7 point game, but still, I'm gonna be laying the points with K-State. I'm with you, -4.
Sweet.
I can speak to why it's a 4-point game right now, and it's mainly because of a few of the trends around Colorado ATS when they are an underdog. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games ATS, and they're 3-0 ATS. At least last year they were as a home underdog. I think this is definitely a team that has improved. They're never going to be the team that is going to go out and try to run the ball. They're ranking 126th among FBS teams for rushing yards per game at only 80.6. However, they're 9th in the FBS for passing yards per game because fucking Shador is there. It's weird. Like I want to hate on Colorado more, but I can't because it actually does work as far as playing Big 12 teams goes. In my mind, though, this is going to be less of a Big 12 matchup. This is as close to that Nebraska game as you're probably going to get from a Big 12 standpoint. Kansas State has a pretty gritty physical defense. Fair amount of white guys out there, which means a lot of guys with a high motor.
They play the game the right way.
Good IQ. They play the game the right way.
This weekend on Sunday, first time since our grandpappies were in their prime, there's going to be 2 white corners starting on the field. Both of them are from the state of Iowa. University of Iowa football players, Riley Moss, Cooper DeJean. Shout out the boys.
Wild times we're living in. But I will agree as well with all the sentiments that you shared between Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards. That's a pretty tough trio to stop. You could try to stop one, but Hail Hydra, you take one head off, another 2 are popping up. So wish Colorado the best of luck defensively, going up against the 16th best rushing team in all of college football per game. And also I think the other thing that makes this one interesting is that Kansas State is the 22nd ranked team for second half points in games this year. They're coming in with over 17 points in the second half on average. I think that this one might start close. I would even give Colorado a bit of an edge in that first half, just based on the way that K-State has looked on the road so far this year. That BYU game is going to leave a really weird taste in everybody's mouth when it comes to this one, which I think is also probably part of why this game is only at 4 instead of that 6-7 area. But I think that the BYU game was a fluke. BYU kind of took over on that one. I'm gonna rock with K-State -4
Clean sweep
as well.
Clean sweep from the rent money boys.
I love it. Wow, there's a lot of lap over this year or this week with some of our picks. All right, so we're gonna fly through the rest of these picks. Everybody's got 1 minute to make their case. If it goes over a minute, you're on the clock. We're gonna start with Old Chisum, Eastern Michigan +3 versus Miami of Ohio, Big Ben.
Yep, Chuck Martin at Miami of Ohio. It's his 11th season. Give him respect for everything he's done there, winning 2 of the last 4 MAC championships. But Chris Creighton deserves just as much over at EMU, taking one of the worst programs in the country to 5 straight bowl games, minus 2020. Martin's Miami came into this season with far more hype than Creighton's EMU team. And Miami has since gone 1-4 against the spread, falling short of their expectations by an average margin of 5.1, even including their ATS victories. And meanwhile, Creighton has gone 5-0 by an average of 8.2. This is a pretty simple numbers game for me. I love me some action. Let's go ahead and just take the home dog, Eastern Michigan +3, and as always, sprinkle on that money line.
We're going to go back to Chisum. Once again, JMU, 5.5 point. Is this first half or full game? Versus Coastal Carolina. Chisum.
Yeah. The Dukes.
Great work last time. 1 minute and under. That was good stuff.
I got you.
Right.
Yeah, I'm taking James Madison's first half line of -5.5. The Dukes no-showed at Monroe last week. Penalties were mainly the thing that cost them. They had 11 for 63 yards, but mostly the passing game was stymied. That came as a bit of surprise for folks such as myself that are kind of keeping an eye on these guys after that North Carolina game, the Kurt Zignetti diamond dash over to Indiana. They had hummed offensively. They looked pretty balanced thus far, averaging 54.3 points per game against FBS competition. That is not a typo. The offense should be back this week, especially because Coastal Carolina's defense is ripe to be exploited on the ground. It's one of the worst rush defenses in the country, and that shows up in particular on late downs. So if JMU can grind this one out, maybe get a home run play here or there, I expect this one to be covered fairly easily because up until last week, JMU had excelled on 3rd and 4th downs, which is a big-time sabermetric I'm keeping my eyes on for the rest of this year. So applying that logic specifically to the first half lets us kind of avoid any backdoor cover opportunities that might arise for Coastal.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, the next is the Bowl of the Academiacs. Stanford's traveling to ND.
Yeah, this is
your ND. The total is, go ahead, text Pete.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this is an easy one for me. I'm keeping it simple. Stanford sucks. Learned that last week. Learned it the hard way. And Notre Dame doesn't trust their quarterback to throw the ball downfield. So that is going to be a system under of 45 points. I think this game will probably shake out Notre Dame 27, Stanford 10, something along those lines. But yeah, under 45 in this one for me.
You're either going to get 13-10 Stanford or Stanford's going to win 72-0. Bring you back to the Purdue game, something like that.
Yeah, 31-6 is my estimate.
Yeah, under 45. 45 is getting high. I'm going to also have an under this weekend. Vandy at Kentucky. Both these teams have some bigger wins under the belt this year, but I do think they both like to play a slower style of football. Not a lot to get excited about offensively for these teams. I know Vandy went for 40, but I think they prefer to play a slower style of football when they can. Pavia, we talked a little Vandy earlier. Pretty exciting player to watch when he's given post-game interviews after beating the number 1 team in the country. But this is also a guy, I think they lost to Georgia Southern earlier in the year. So, or they ain't cover, running close. Doesn't really matter. I'm just taking the under. System play. 46.5. I don't know if I give out the number. 46.5 is the number. Taking the under. All right, ripping back over to Chisum. You got another Carolina matchup. I'm not talking Duke versus Clemson. I'm talking Georgia Tech at UNC. Georgia Tech is 5.5 point favorites.
It can always get worse, they say. I know I've given this spiel a time or two, but I know North Carolina, they thought their lives sucked when they lost Max Johnson game 1 against Minnesota. They thought losing to James Madison by 20 points, namely giving up 70, looked terrible. And then 2 weeks ago, blowing a 20-0 lead against the rival Duke. And last week reminded us, yes, once again, it can in fact get worse as North Carolina was outscored 10-0 in the fourth quarter in a 10-point loss to Pitt. We were on the right side of that one. We're going to continue to just fade this North Carolina team. Pitt was able to just run the ball. They ran 12 times without losing a yard. And the good news for Jeff Collins' defense is that Georgia Tech does not lean on the run, but the bad news is that their passing game will make things even worse. So go ahead and just give me Tech -5.5. I think they're going to get back on the right side of things here, mostly because they're just playing North Carolina.
Yeah, so you could say this is when it rains, it pours plays. And I think both of these schools have got their fair share of rain over the past week and a half in the impact zone of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton coming in. So
yeah, Milton's coming in. I think somebody here, this group of three, this podcast, said they're going to do a bit of a Milton projection, a Milton look forward.
Never was a fan of Joe Milton, but he could throw an orange 80 yards, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. As far as weather, quick update for everybody. There's going to be a lot of wind. It's going to rain, and it's not going to be ideal living conditions or even survival. So if you're able to, get the hell out of Dodge. If you're not, I mean, yeah, I wish you the best of luck. Keep a chainsaw or an axe with you so that, if water levels get too high, you can break through your own roof, get on top, start waving that flag, just like Kanon and the good fellas from the FIFA World Cup, I believe 2012. Could be wrong on the year, but whoa. Cheers to the National Guard.
Wonderful. I think that might be the picks. Raise your hand if you still got one. Would like to call out, we got a big Iowa State game going to West Virginia. We mentioned it earlier. Maybe we'll see some couches get burned. Iowa State continues to rack up some wins. Got a soft schedule going forward until they got Utah and Kansas State back-to-back. Hope they continue to roll. We'll see what happens. Could lead to some fun games down the stretch. But West Virginia's looking a little bit better after a big road win against Oklahoma State last weekend on the road. Iowa State's 3.5-point favorites currently. It's starting to get a little thinner in some of the secondary as injuries start to pile up. I lean West Virginia. We'll see if it makes the card. Arizona at BYU. Go ahead, Chisum.
I was going to say I have both Iowa and Iowa State will be on my card. Probably going to do a, boys back home parlay. Okay. Just, putting those two together. I think Iowa getting 2.5 against Washington, they're going to be able to just outgun, maybe not outgun, but out physical the opponent, just kind of pound them into the dirt. If Rutgers can do it, Iowa should have little to no problem. And Iowa State, their fans are getting a little too big for their britches. It's an annual tradition, unlike any other. You see it happen in just about every single sport where Iowa State fans think, hey, we have this win or we got that win. I hate to tell them that their win at Iowa isn't, that impressive, but it was an impressive win because of the comeback, because of the rich tradition that is presented by the state. And I'm also just not that impressed by West Virginia. And I'm really not impressed by getting a win over an Oklahoma State team that has done nothing but underperform. Ollie Gordon looking about 50% as productive this year as he was last year. I'm still waiting for West Virginia to prove it. I won't get fooled again. I'm not going to get fooled again by Morgantown.
Fool me, I'm not going to get fooled.
I almost slipped it myself. Top of my card, I actually do have Iowa's -2.5 against Washington at home. This is a really tough spot for Washington. They just traveled out to Rutgers on a Friday 2 weekends ago. Then they hosted. Now they're traveling out to Iowa to play an 11 a.m. game Central Time, a.k.a. 9 a.m. Washington time. The travel, the Hawk faithful, the physical nature of Hawkeye football, I do think they're able to grind them out, beast them up, and get this one done. Real quick, just a couple other lines. I don't even think we're going to touch on them. Just wanted to call them out as games for the weekend, games for the slate. Friday night, we got Northwestern at Maryland. Maryland is 10-point favorites. And then we got Utah at Arizona State. Utah is 4.5-point favorites. Probably the weakest Friday night slate we've had this year. South Carolina at Bama. Bama's 21-point favorites. We got Cal at Pitt. Two teams all of us have been kind of circling all year. Cal visiting Pitt. Weird-ass game. ACC is so wonky. God, that's a weird one. But Pitt is 3.5-point favorites. Let's see here. Arizona, BYU. You mentioned Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee is still 15.5. tells you what the books think of Florida. Tennessee might be front runners this year. We're shying off some of the Tennessee plays. Still a Nico pod. And I think that is the games that we're going to hit on this week. So I think we're 2 hours deep. Quick 2 hours for us. Hopefully it was the same for you all listening. It's been a blast getting through it. Shout out the True Underdog Story, Peter LaFleur. Shout out the Mighty Ducks. Texas Pete, who was your underdog?
South Central Louisiana State Mud Dogs.
Shout out South Central Louisiana State Mud
1998
Dogs.
Bourbon
Shout
Bowl
out
champions.
all the underdogs. Durban Bowl. Shout out all the underdogs and you. Wake up tomorrow maybe with a little chip on your shoulder. Get to it. Nothing to lose. You can't sit around all day not trying to attack the day. All right. That's all I got.
Motivation.
I'm going to sit back and kick my feet up.
Yeah. Motivation is fickle. Don't ever rely on it. Rely on the level of your training and a little bit of discipline, hell of a lot of grit. Don't forget to take your vitamins, say your prayers. Oh, are we good on that? Call it there. TP going 5-0 this week, baby. Stay tuned. Before we go though, one last thing. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna endorse Donald Trump as the official nomination from the Rent Money podcast. It has nothing to do with him and everything to do with Kamala's inability to answer your question. And also the current state of inflation in this country.
Adam's got the camel hat on, so you know where he stands.
Less than ideal. Call me crazy, but I don't think lying on record and writing it off as being a knucklehead is good enough when you're a vice presidential candidate. So now that we got that out of the way,
Where did that come from?
now that we got that out of the way,
Yeah, that's the
Oh.
what the hell?
I think we'll just put a bow on this thing here. But before we get going, don't forget to tell your bookie
register to vote.
To register to vote, and then after you get back from the polls, tell them that we say hi.
I'm loving the pop off.